Yes, everyone, hello. Welcome back to another episode here on Cluiche with me, Seamus, Brady, our host. I'm joined once again by Matthew Hurley, and we have Eamon Donoghue also with us as well. We are going to run through the two All-Ireland Club finals, which took place over the weekend. Of course, we had the All-Ireland Club football final, which Glen came out on top in, and we had the All-Ireland Club hurling final, which took place before that. St. Thomas's came out on top in that one by 1 point, beating O'Loughlin Gales. Now, we are going to start football, and then we're going to move into the hurling later. Myself and Eamon were in Croke Park at the games. Matthew was trapped behind the storm in Cork. Matthew, what's it like down there?
Pretty windy, I can't lie, and thanks for having me on again, Seamus. Yeah, it's not as windy as Galway, Mayo, Donegal at the moment, but pretty windy down here. You even fear that the power might cut in the next hour, so hopefully it doesn't in this podcast now. But we'll see now. But yeah, it was an interesting game. Watch it on the TV. I'm sure you lads probably had the best seats of the house viewing it, but yeah, it was brilliant viewing it on the TV. I thought Bridges were going to win it for a while, up until Jack Connor Glass goal, which was just a moment of brilliance. But yeah, looking forward to discussing the game with you today.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, the atmosphere was great in the stadium. Eamon, what did you make of it as well in the stadium, primarily for the football one? What did you make?
Yeah. No, it was good. Like coming down to the stadium beforehand, like the only people were out on the streets, people going to the games, like everyone else was staying inside. So everyone who made it obviously were the hardcores, because it was obviously windy and wet, and the weather warnings were telling everyone to stay inside. I thought it was I suppose Roscommon and myself, kind of, you'd like to see Roscommon team win, but at the same time you'd never be too, you wouldn't be as Bridges to be a rival of my own club. So but I was very invested, I suppose, in them winning, just because of the style of play that they brought to the game, and that they bring themselves, like always, Bridges' style of play, which is, nothing mad, but just, I suppose, very different from what we see from nearly every other club team, which is kick passing the ball, small little kick pass into the pockets of space, support runners running off of it, just not being completely risk averse. And to have seen that pay off would have been great, because we've obviously seen the Currafin teams, how they dominated club football playing that way, and it would have been great to see a team win a club championship playing that way again. And then you could have actually made an argument then, with all these club teams around the country playing a different way, that, this is actually the most successful style of football. But obviously the counter argument to that is that Bridges and Currafin, these clubs, they've been playing that way since they were yay high, they since they were kids, so it's hard to come into a senior club team and develop that. But Bridges, I thought it was a good game of football. At the same time, you wouldn't begrudge Glen because of obviously last year, and it's great scenes, I suppose, a lot of emotion with them, and Derry football is flying at the moment, and you wouldn't begrudge them, and they obviously stayed in the game really well, and they showed really good maturity and all of those things, which Bridges kind of lacked because they're a very young team. But all in all, really, really good game, really good advertisement in the conditions, especially
Yeah, no, big time. And I mean, you're right, Derry football is absolutely on the rise. Well, not on the rise, they have risen, but in terms, it's in such a great place when you consider the McKenna Cup victory, obviously beating Jim McGuinness, Donegal there, and then on top of that, Glen winning the All-Ireland Club Championship, their first one. And look, it was slipping away from them, and they needed to show that leadership. And obviously, we're going to get into Connor Glass. Matthew, I'm going to, throw that one over to you. But let's start with that one. I couldn't get my words out there for a second. I've taken the flip-flop out of my mouth, and now we're going to talk about this game, which was an incredible All-Ireland Club football final. There's no doubt about it. It was dramatic, it was gripping, and it finished Glen 2-10, Bridget's 1 goal and 12 points. As we've said, Bridget's looked to be in the driving seat. They looked to be in pole position, especially coming into the home stretch. And then, Matthew, out of nowhere, that goal from Connor Glass. Michael Warnock had got an inspirational point just before it. Glass gets the goal. Glen tag on 2 more points, and they see it out from there.
Yeah, and up until that point, it looked like Glen were just out of it. Everything they hit wide. I think it was a 40-odd% shot accuracy at times in the game, and then Bridges kept it above 80%, and you're thinking every time Bridges go up the field, they're going to take a score. If Glen go down the other pitch, they're not taking it whatsoever. And it just needed 2 things in particular: a moment of brilliance and maybe a slip up from Bridges. And I think that was all in the one move with the Conor Glass goal. It was just brilliant from Conor Glass. In fairness, to hit it from there, to the accuracy to hit it from there was just superb. But the Bridges goalkeeper, you'd nearly feel sorry for him, just going out of the goal at that particular moment in time, and it was just hit into the back of the net. It was a brilliant finish by Glass, and that leveled the game.
One thing with that match, could I just tag this in? Being in the stadium, I seen this. There was one thing that not a lot of people would see, but the Bridges keeper came out to make himself available for a short pass from the free. For the Bridges player who was taking the free, and Glass spotted the keeper as an easy option and ran over to cover him. So that made the Bridges player go forward with the kick pass, which led to the turnover and also the keeper being out of his goal. And then, so he almost kind of set himself up for the opportunity for the goal as well by covering that pass.
Yeah, and you could see that when Glass.
And when you think of it,
yeah, when Glass got, no, I was just saying when Glass got the ball in his hands, because obviously then the keeper was in two minds whether to come out to the long ball, kind of dropping. Yeah. When Glass, that would explain why Glass was so aware of exactly where the keeper was, because when he took his shot, because like you were thinking, like when you're watching, you were thinking, oh Jesus, the keeper back in time. But normally for the player who had the ball in his hand to be that aware of it, like it was that, and that would explain why, because he obviously had his eye on the keeper from early in the move, like. Mm-hmm. You were the Hawkeye up there spotting that, like, yeah, that was, as you said with that, Matthew, like it was both those two things in one. Like it was a slip up and it was a moment of brilliance, like which arrived both in the one moment. Like, fairness to Bridges goalie, like his traditional outfield player, kind of converted into a goalie. He's an older player, and I thought he did well. Like, you know, a few kickouts could have kind of been kept away from Conor Glass, I suppose, but I think Bridges were trying to split the two Glen midfielders very much like solidly take a side each, and like they don't budge from that, and Bridges were trying to go 2v1 on with midfielders on the kickouts, and it worked for one of them with Canan caught in the first half, but by and large they got swamped with their kickout, and they really couldn't win their own kickout all day. And the only bit of joy that Glen had in the whole game was when they could kind of force consecutive long kickouts and they could just keep coming back with them. But like I thought that a lot of people say that like conditions can sometimes be a bit of a leveler, and in some ways they can, but I also think that the teams who do well in like tricky conditions, especially wet conditions, are the teams with the better skill set, because every little detail, every little finish like needs to be executed that bit better, because you know nothing is really simple. And when I seen the conditions as they were, and you know that Bridges team, they're a small team, they're a young team, and they're all very good footballers. Like I was just very confident of them winning that game, because I just seen that condition, but at the same time, because of the size, strength, speed, and experience of Glen in comparison, you always felt that like Glen could get scores easier if they did kind of rip through and get a goal, and you know they could get another and another. And once Bridges kind of lost that 100% concentration on everything that they were doing, they were going to be in trouble, and that was it. Like kind of one slip, in the first half, the goal kind of could have been a bit more decisive in the way they dealt. But again, it kind of a long ball in, and there was kind of a bit more of a rub of the green where it kind of landed, like the breaks of that. But yeah, like it was as going back to that again, it was both those two things at once. A bit of luck, a bit of kind of the moment of brilliance, and also a lack of concentration on the Bridges side, kind of in the one moment, like so.
Yeah, and then Matthew, to throw that back to you as well, great point that Eamon made was the speed at which Glen were able to rack up 1-1, 1-2. It didn't just happen there. Like the Michael Warner point, the Glass goal, and the 2 points that tagged onto that happened really fast. But as well as that, in the first half, Bridges were also in the driving seat. Jody McDermott gets the goal, and they get pretty much, I think it was Ethan Doherty who equalised pretty much immediately after. That was also another vital part of their victory.
I suppose the most impressive aspect for Glen was they didn't get the hit for them. They still stuck around to their principles, and I think that was key to their win in many ways. Like Bridges seemed to do everything right. They were hit their Glen on the counter attack as well. Like on the counter attack, Bridges were absolutely frightening in the first half. That incident where Ben O'Carroll and some other player was running beside him, and it should have been a goal. Ben O'Carroll should have stuck that in the back of the net, and if he stuck that would have been talked about in this game rather than Conor Glass's goal in many ways, because that was just an incredible break. But yeah, Glen, things didn't go right for them, but they got that goal at the right time through Jody McDermott. But Bridges still deserve massive credit as well. When we talk Glen, okay, they've got their leveler now. They've got to 1 fight to 8 points. You're thinking, okay, they're going to go up another few gears now. Brian Durham gets that goal afterwards for Bridges when no one expected it. And that probably epitomized what Bridges were as well, a very, very good team. And usually with underdogs, they have to get their shot accuracy absolutely correct at times. Bridges today was 81%. I know they still lost the game, but that's how they kept in the game. They did the simple things correctly. They shot, they were definitely working on a few things in the training ground, I'd imagine, as well, because like in the Castlehaven game in particular, in the second half, they were very, very poor in the third quarter. They didn't score anything in that third quarter. And I'd imagine Jerome Stack would have said to those players, that won't suffice against Watty Graham's game. If that happens against Watty Graham's game, we're going to lose. So I think they ironed out those misdeeds, really, in the third quarter. And they produced a very good game, in fairness. It was just that little bit at the end where Glen were just smart. Bridges probably showed a bit of an experience in Croke Park, and that was the difference between the two sides. But in fairness to Bridges, having performed poorly in that second half against Castlehaven, to then produce a very, very good second half performance in this game where they were up with Watty Graham's Glen to the very end of the game, I think that showed a lot of guts. And as well as that, with the wides as well, they only hit their first wide with the last kick of the game. That Shane Conan free. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But they, incredible. Yeah. With Bridges in that, like in terms of like no more than Cara Finn, who play a very similar style of football, like the Croke Park really suits them. So like that extra space, the width, the pockets of space, it really suits them. So it creates more scoring chances. And like I suppose Ben O'Carroll kind of being left up there, like you can see even in Croke Park, like they own a lot of the ball. They have really nice movements, but like they have to work very hard for every score. Like no score is like, except for, as you said, they're very clinical on the counter attack, so that they can cut through you on the counter. But like they owned most of the ball. They had more ball, way more ball, considering the fact as well that they couldn't win any long kick out or any contestable in anywhere on the field really. They had most of the ball. They set the tempo of the play, and it was just a case of like they had to work very hard for their scores. But like I don't think it was a case of like Bridges got all their accuracy. Like that accuracy level is very good, but they were all like they weren't scoring points from everywhere. Like they were all in the scoring zone, and the shots that the Glen were missing it was good defending, but it also showed up like just kind of a lack of like, so the wind was pulling into that right corner in the second half. And the Glen had no left-footed forward, like so every time they were pulled out onto that right foot, they didn't want to have a shot on that right. And when the opportunities were presenting themselves on the left, they had no one out like. And you even seen that with Kieran McFall, who hit a brutal wide running through the middle, right in front, and he went on his left because he was aware that like the left was pulling in nicely. And in the first half, Bridges got some nice scores with that win because they've got a nice balance. And like that even goes into the point that like again that like Bridges set up with more of a football mentality. Like there's a reason why traditionally right half forward, right corner forward are left footers, because when the ball comes across there, you come on the loop and you come on the arc and you can get a left footed shot. And I just think that like the run of play, it just very much supported and showed how strong Bridges are, how much better Bridges were as a football team. But then inevitably, like as we know, the modern game is a lot more than that, and like the experience, speed, and power of the Glen kind of inevitably won out. But like I don't know, like that Bridges team are so young, like, you know, like other than Brian Stack, Eddie Nolan, and Ronan Stack, like I don't think there's any outfield player even above like 24. You know, they're kids, like their whole bench are all kids. You know, like the likes of, there's lads there, like even the last county title they won before this were Niall McInerney, Peter Dominican's a little bit older now, but like they have really good players who you would expect to still be there on the team. Like it's remarkable what they've done as such a young team. And if they can keep that together, like they're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
I definitely don't think that's the last that we've heard of St. Bridget's in this like club championship, you know, over the next few years. I think they're going to be back. I think they'll probably win Roscommon next year. I'd be fairly confident in saying that. But But then the main thing as well, when we're talking about this game as well, Matthew, I said this to you off air. There was one thing that I really have like just a bone to pick with. I really hate it as something that's part of our game. And if you're watching this live, if you want to get involved in this discussion in the comments below at any time, throw them in. The live chat will also answer them all if you want to annoy Matthew more about any Super Value Park stuff. Like that was 10 comments in a minute on the last episode on Matthew's channel, Gaelic Statsman. Go check that out if you haven't. But my issue with this game is an issue that is a bit of a plague in the GA, is that I don't think that the black card is enough of a deterrent to completely take someone out in the last minute of a game. It's not enough of a deterrent. When Bridget's were on that last attack to try and, get their equaliser, not a chance was that player going to step anywhere near Glen's D area. Not a chance. And if I'll admit this, I'll hold my hands up. If I was playing, not a chance would I let him get close either. I'd try kick the legs out from under him to make sure he doesn't get there. The black card is not enough of a deterrent to stop players fouling in the last minute of the game. For me, simple as Kieran Whelan came up with a good solution. If it's inside the last 2 minutes and you do what is a black card worthy foul, it's also free from the 21-yard line. Because that pretty much is a guarantee of a point. In my opinion, that would cut it out. Matthew, do you agree?
It's an interesting point, yeah. And I think, again, that was very similar. And me and you reacted to this, Seamus, in the summer, the All-Ireland quarterfinal, Monaghan and Armagh. I remember distinctly a lot of Armagh players were putting down Monaghan players. I think they did it twice in the last minute. And I was absolutely frustrated with that. And I don't want to see that going into the last few minutes. But if I was in Conor McGuckin's shoes, I'd do the exact same thing.
Of course.
I'd pull him down.
He was like, I'll take it and I'll walk off. He's not going to score this. And then we win.
It's what he does. He's entitled to do it. And he wasn't on a bookie anyway. So you could see that he was going to do it anyway. And there's loads of examples, loads of games where a side is a point down or 2 points down, or 2 points up, should I say, or a point up. And the managers screaming for the sideline, take him down. I've been involved in my own club team, and that's probably the attitude in my club. Never mind in inter-county. That's junior level now. So I think that's just the attitude throughout the country. And I think Kieran Whelan makes a very good point with that rule. And make no mistake about it, if that rule was implemented today, we would be in extra time. Because
if that rule was implemented, Glen would not have fouled Bridget's there. They would have been terrified to foul them.
Yeah,
but they did.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. Like at the end, you kind of felt like any Bridges player who was kind of half getting by, it was like it was doing their absolute best to try and get that hand pass away before they were dragged down. Like it was very much like rugby territory. But obviously that's more of an issue at the end of the game, as you were saying. But like even for the goal chance in the first half, like Rory Fallon, who was absolutely superb, like he cut through, intercepted that ball, carried up the field, like again, kick pass straight away, which you just don't see in a modern game. It's not that risky to give that ball. It's 70% kick pass on into the corner forward, one hop in front of him, corner forward in sync with the player, took it out, 1-2. And then as he broke the tackle to give it back to Ben O'Carroll, he was being dragged down and he was able to kind of like, as the ball was kind of being bounced up into the air as he was fouled, he kind of with one hand flicked it on really nicely. And that's how Ben O'Carroll got the goal chance. But again, that wouldn't have been a goal chance. They were willing to take the black card and give the. So yeah, it's obviously even in that early stage of the game, the black card, the players aren't considering it enough of a deterrent. So yeah, like I think it is. It kind of ruins a bit of that end of the game where you kind of are. It makes it even harder, like when there's only a score in the game and everyone kind of wants that last hurrah to happen or that last bit of drama. Like it reduces the chances of it, But yeah, I'd like to have seen the TV angle and replays to see how close that free was at the end, because he looked to have struck it really, really nicely. But yeah, like it was, and he he was taking over the freeze after Shane Canan took over the freeze after Nugent had gone. Like so, he obviously isn't striking them all the time. Like, but I thought that like when he caught it, I thought that was perfect. But there was a few shots that the Glen had in the first half as well, where like they obviously went really far to the far post, thinking that the wind would bring it back out, but the wind obviously was coming so strong that it was still going wide. Like so, I don't know. Did the replay show that was very tight? Was it, or was it well wide?
I was close enough, and like people were cheering in the stadium as if it was going over, and then obviously went wide. It was a heartbreaking way to lose, to know that you had a shot to equalise it. And look, it was kind of 40, was on the 45 line. It was.
Yeah, just on the 45, essentially. Yeah. So, and I said he struck it. He struck it really nicely. Struck it really sweetly. But and like obviously, sometimes you see lads like in that moment, like they could absolutely scuff it, or they could get the better of them. But no, he got right under it. And yeah, was a nice attempt. But like, yeah, I think that Bridget's, once that goal went in, like that was such a swayer. Like, you know, they'd been in such control and they needed to stay in control like that. And you need to be in a situation where you're ahead of the Glen. Like, you don't want to be behind them at all. Like, because they actually did well to get another crack at it when the Glen, I thought they were going to hold possession for longer than they did. It was quite a good press to come up on them. But yeah, like I suppose one of the other kind of main talking points you alluded to earlier was just the performance of Conor Glass was absolutely outrageous. Like it was absolutely outrageous. Like, geez, like one of the balls he caught, like he took two lads out with his knees. There was another one where he broke, like he could have caught it, but he drove it into the forward line.
And the goal as well.
And the goal, yeah, and like some of his tackles and loose balls, and he's just all over the field. Like his fitness levels are outrageous. Like he just kind of motors around. And like you hear commentators often referring to like a big, huge man. He's not that big of a man for midfield. He's quite light. He's not like 6'4" or 6'5" or anything like that. He's like, if you put him beside Brian Fenton, like he's a small man beside Brian Fenton. But like,
would you think so?
Fit. He's not 6'4", like he's not, and he's very lean, like. But he's got a massive leap. And he's just so fit. He just powers around that field like he's a gazelle. It's a bit like one of those when they there was a stage there when Darragh O'Shea was being called 6'4" and he barely 6 foot, like, you know. So yeah, like it's one of those, like he is tall, but like he's not towering out there. Like, you know, as I said, if you put him beside Brian Fenton, he's a small man beside Brian Fenton. Like, you know, in every.
Be interested to see that. One man I was surprised at how huge he was, and I met him once, was Matthew Tierney. I remember meeting him and being absolutely stunned at how big Matthew Tierney was.
Huge
man, massive, like.
Yeah. But those guys are like, to Matthew Tierney's 6'4", 6'5", like, and obviously Fenton is like that as well. Like, so where Conor Glass 6'2", like, and he's obviously very tall, but he's 6'2", and he's very, very lean, like very lean. But he's just so strong, so aggressive. His leap is huge, and his athleticism, he just motors around that field. Like, you know, when the ball kind of, like, he's midfield, so he's doing so much carrying. But like, there was one period at the end where a ball kind of like bounced, and like two British lads kind of went up to kind of flick, and he just came through them, like hand pass, get it back, hand pass. And you're just there, like the amount of distance that he has covered at that stage of the game compared to nearly anyone else. And he's just like eating through movements like that. He was colossus, like, and like just interceptions as well. And I think he made a block in the first half as well. Like, he was absolutely everywhere. Like, that was, in terms of them deserving it from last year and in terms of his performance. And I thought they had a really nice acceptance speech as well. Kind of felt like they were really great speech actually afterwards. Like, so yeah, you wouldn't begrudge them anyway.
Well, that's it. And they've come like the long way through it. I think, Matthew, I think one thing that it reminds me of, say, when Liverpool finally won the Premier League title. I was like, you've been fantastic for 2 years to win the title once, and you do deserve to win that title. They are deserving champions. And I mean, I'm just going to throw this back to you to wrap it up. You predicted it right from the start. Glen are All-Ireland club champions. That's what you said right from the get-go, and they've done it today. So you must be feeling pretty proud of yourself on that prediction.
Not many predictions I get right, Seamus. So I'm definitely drinking this in. You can see all the memes going up to social media, you know, that says, yeah, I was right. But yeah, like I just knew it from the outset there was going to be a vengeance this year after what happened last January. I know Kilmacud were the better team that day. I think Glen were kind of frustrated with two things. One, the performance wasn't good enough on the day. And two, because of the way it ended with the 17 players on the pitch. And it was just a sort of an incident that would never happen in Gaelic games. So Glen always had that vengeance that they were going to win this final. But just on Conor Glass for a minute there as well for his performance. He got 1-2 today, 100% shot accuracy. 3 turnovers in the first half alone. And Eamon was talking about his blocks there, his interceptions. That's counting that as well. That was just incredible. And his athleticism as well. And Eamon was talking about, the catch above the two Bridges lads as well was just unreal.
That was like an
And,
Aussie rules catch.
Yeah, it's outrageous. Like
unreal.
when you see the ball hanging in front of me, you are there thinking like, geez, if I was midfield for Bridges there, I would be just saying to my goalkeeper, like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Like,
hanging
you're
it
gonna
up
kick
on
it to
top
me,
of him.
get it at an angle or something. But if you hang that ball up around him, like
But speaking of that,
he-
yeah, we've a comment in here. Hurling 123 for us that the shape of these players is ridiculous. They must
Yeah,
live some.
yeah.
They must live some disciplined lifestyles from gym, diet, etc.
True. You think of like the lad in the Bridges team who I think of with that is like he's kind of a different position altogether. But like Ben O'Carroll, the movement of
Yeah.
him inside is just it's relentless. Like he did the same for Roscommon, even more so for Bridges in terms of he's like a one man inside. He's on his own. He obviously puts good pressure on defensively. A lot of the time he kind of leaves himself up as like the last guy, so he's not having to do as much defensive work, but he still puts on great intensity. And then
He has a dog in
single-
him as well. He has a
He's-
dog in him as well. I was watching.
Oh.
He has a dog. I was watching him today. Michael Warnock and Ryan Duggan were giving him hell, and he was giving it right back. There was a
Yeah.
couple of times where he somehow came out with the ball.
Yeah.
was-
Like even I thought it was a great call by the referee when he kind of dived on the ball in the corner, but like he kind of kicked it ahead of himself. Fullback did really well when he went over, and I mean, he defended that really well. But like every single play that comes around him, he's at 100%. Like he's playing at 100% intensity, movement, cutting, and like he's just repeating that play. Very, very rarely injured. Like the kind of the fitness levels of somebody like him or a Conor Glass. Again, if you look at some of the Dublin players, like it's built up over a good few years, like a good few years of just like really smart. Yeah, and as I said, the fact that they're not having injuries and stuff like that as well, like it's really impressive. Like yeah, like Glass would be a terrifying prospect to mark, like because in the middle of the field there, like Eddie Nolan had a really good game. He scored 2 points, like but you know, like you wouldn't want to, yeah, you wouldn't want to be stuck marking Conor Glass on the sides of Croke Park, like.
100%. And he was the main man in leading Watty Glen to their first ever All-Ireland Club Championship victory. An absolutely outstanding performance by him and an outstanding performance by Glen. Congratulations to them. Anyone associated with the club, enjoy these days. They come very rarely. Very, very few clubs get to experience days like this, so enjoy them. Malik O'Rourke, Conor Glass, Emmett Bradley, any of the lads that put the work in, absolutely truly deserving All-Ireland Club champions for 2023/24. So that is the football finished. Eamon, thank you very, very much for coming on with the football with us today. And it will be myself and Matthew who will carry on with the hurling. So, Matthew, we have one more game to look at, the All-Ireland Hurling Club final, which took place at 1:30 today in the wind of Croke Park again. I mean, one thing that was a spectacle was the flags up behind the goal. The flags were doing loop-the-loops. They were spinning one way and then spinning the next immediately after. Swirling winds around the stadium. But in those swirling winds, St. Thomas's won the All-Ireland Club Hurling Championship final. They beat O'Loughlin Gales by 18 points to 17. And that photo right there, credited to RTE. That photo is what happened right at the death. Aina Burke with the extraordinary winning score. And just to touch on that to start, what a point to win it by Aina Burke. Absolutely sensational score. At that late stage, to pull out a point like that, outrageous, and ends up being the difference as St. Thomas's win the All-Ireland.
Isn't it amazing, actually, because I was seeing on the new news bulletin there that Aina Burke was 17 years of age when Thomas won the All-Ireland in 2013, and he was on the panel for the first time in its senior level. And for him, 10 years later, to hit a brilliant score, one of the scores of the ages, and to do that in the last minute of the game is one. To do it in any other stage of the game is one thing, but to do it in the last minute is just absolutely unreal. When your bodies are tired, and he just whipped it really. Like, it was just an incredible score. It was on the sideline. The skill level is absolutely superb. And yeah, it was a brilliant, brilliant score from Aina Burke. And we knew he had this in his locker. I think he scored 4 goals and 25 points going into this game in all the championships so far. So we knew he had skill. Could he produce it on the big day? That's your answer. Yes. What a performance from Aina Burke. What a performance from David Burke as well. And I know this is about Aina's point, brilliant score and all that, but David was absolutely superb as well. absolutely unreal today. And when you think about the story that he's been through, the injuries, nobody expected him to come back into play. Never mind playing in All Ireland final. Played in All Ireland final, and he put in every last bit what he had. He was just absolutely superb. And the Thomas's team, brilliant win from them. But it was a controversial game, very exciting game. But there are some controversial incidents. I'm sure we'll discuss this in this chat too.
We will get into that. And I mean, that is going to be the next thing that we are going to discuss. Anybody watching, I'm sure you've all seen it. It's done the loops on social media. Matthew, you had it up quick as well on your Instagram, Gaelic Statsman. Go give that a follow if you don't already. I don't know. To be honest, if you're watching me and you don't follow Matthew, I don't really know how at this stage. But anyway, this was up, Matthew. This is taken from your Instagram page. This here, Fintan Burke on the goal line. Well, behind the goal line with the ball in his hand. I mean, that's the ghost goal of all ghost goals. That's in, surely.
Come on, Seamus. I don't know, is that even a question? It's in. Absolutely, it's in. And credit actually, Dermot O'Sullivan, the former Cork fullback, actually posted that on Twitter. I just got it on my Instagram, and then I took another photo as well for the other angle. So yeah, it was just incredible in its own right. How did the umpires not spot that? First of all, why are they beside the sliotar? And they're behind us now? I don't get it. I really don't. And you were saying off air, maybe it's because they'd be afraid to get hit by the ball. Probably it was.
I think that was it. I think that they might have been thinking here, especially when they're going for goal. I think they might have been thinking here, get me out of this. Get me out of the way in case that ball flies wide and hits me. That's
the thing, yeah. And I thought that was their mindset as well. And as well as that on my Instagram page, I put up a vote as well. Was it a goal or not? And not surprisingly, 410 said it was a goal and 79 says it wasn't. So a huge gulf there. So
I mean,
a lot of people could see it was a goal. Unfortunately, the guys that matter didn't see if it was a goal. And I'd put this question to you, Seamus. It was a point in the game at the end. Brilliant score by Eamon Donoghue, and it might mean nothing now. But do you think the game should go to a replay because of this?
No, I don't think you can say that would warrant a replay when they didn't give a replay last year for Kilmacud Crokes and Watty Graham's Glen. Now, like, we're looking at it there, it's clearly over the line. But if you didn't give a replay for Glen Kilmacud Crokes last year, when it was in the last minute of the game, I don't know how you justify giving a replay for something that happened in the first half.
Maybe,
if you get what I mean. Yeah. I do get it, but like, I think you're slipping into dangerous territory if you're to say a terrible refereeing decision equals replay. Because, I mean, there's going to be a lot of, poor decisions over the next few months. I don't know if you agree with that, though. But, like, in my opinion, it's clear that there should be, like, a TMO system or, like, something like that in place. That, like, VAR, for example, it is slow, it is frustrating, it is annoying, and it does slow the game down. But if you made a rule in the GA, for example, that you only have 30 seconds to make your mind up, or 30 seconds to you just look at the first two replays, and then you make up your mind. Because it only takes 5 seconds to look at this to know that that's not to know that that is over the line. Do you get what I mean? Would that be something that we could work towards?
It is, to be fair, yeah. I think actually a good system, and this is a bit of an advertisement now, other than the AGA, but the Six Nations is coming up, I think, in 2 weeks' time. Watch how the TMO deals with decisions like this, controversial decisions. What the referee actually does is he gets a mic, he goes up to his TMO, has a discussion, and we can hear what's happening in that discussion. And at the end of it, it's the same as American football. They tell the stadium why they'd award a goal or not a goal or a decision or anything like that. And I think that would work very well. And that's why I think soccer and VAR, I think that fails so much because there's no clarity. And I think the GA needs a bit of clarity. I think rugby is a better example with the TMO, to be honest with you. But even Hawkeye, why can't Hawkeye, have a decision to make in this either? They have a decision making points. Why can't they have a decision making goals? It's it's a really, really strange. I don't know like even, and that could have robbed O'Loughlin Gaels now today. And it was just unfortunate. It was just unfortunate because at half time, instead of O'Loughlin Gaels being 5 points up, they were 2 points up. And ultimately, that
and
did
then with
cost
the James
them.
Regan's red card and everything, like it could have really tipped it in their favour.
Yeah, it could have. It could have. If spots and maybes. And yeah, it was a difficult. Like even Paddy Deegan, I think, was having a discussion with the ref at half time as well. And things were getting heated, So, yeah, but I think the refs need a lot more help than what they're getting as well. And I think VAR or TMO or whatever would do wonders for the GA. And I've heard some arguments that there should be Hawkeye in every single ground in Gaelic games. So far, there's only Hawkeye in 2 grounds, Crow Park and Seppel Stadium. And that's not good enough. Simply not good enough.
It comes down to money. It genuinely does come down to the money. Like that, do they have enough money to put Hawkeye in provincial grounds, places like Parnell Park, and places like Super Valley Park. But money can. But like, that is a money thing, and I do think that in 20, 25 years, I think Hawkeye will be covered across most of the grounds. But I think the opportunity to use replays should be something that we make more accessible to referees, because the reality is they get the blame. They get the blame for decisions like that. The referee could the referee have seen in as quick as that for definite that ball went over the line. Like that, he'd be 100% sure. He has to trust his umpires in that moment because they are right there. But like, anytime, most of the time, there's been absolutely bizarre decisions. The umpires have usually been right there. Like they are literally cardboard cutouts half the time. They literally stand there, wave flags, and you think the Kilmacud Crokes thing, they were standing right beside Darren Mullen, who was supposed to go off. Joe Sheridan's goal for Meath against Louth in 2010. I mean, one of them watched him throw the ball in. Like, there's been a lot of key decisions where the umpires have been standing right there. And I'm just like, for that, they were in a bad position to see whether or not that ball did cross the line. Like, I'll bring up the image again. If we bring up the image here, they're standing right behind the goal. And Fintan Burke has his body somewhat between, I'd say the umpire on the left there, the screen as you're watching it, Fintan Burke has his kind of legs between the umpire and the ball. So he can't actually see where the ball is. The umpire on the right looks like he should have a somewhat decent view of it from first glance. But again, we have to remember, this is all happening at 100 miles an hour. And I do think the umpires probably were standing behind the goal so as to avoid being hit by a sliotar should that shot go wide. But the reality is, you can see there, that ball is over the line. And like, O'Loughlin Gaels do have a right to feel pretty hard done by in this situation. And for future, there has to be some sort of video assistant to the ref. And I'm not saying the Premier League one. I'm saying speed it up. Give the person who's on the other end, give them something like 30 seconds to look at the replay and make their decision quick so that the game doesn't get slowed down, because it only takes 10 seconds to take a look at this and say, yeah, that's over the line. So like, O'Loughlin Gaels do deserve to feel hard done by on that call.
Yeah, to be fair. And what I will say as well, and this is coming to my head now, remember in 2018, Austin Gleeson, I think it was a Tipperary and Waterford of the Munster Championship.
Yes, I remember.
Clearly holds the sliotar above the line, above the crossbar, and then the umpire gives a goal. And you're like,
I remember that.
You're giving that as a goal, and you're not giving this as a goal. I mean, it's bizarre, isn't it? It really is. And I do think genuinely, if the umpires can't make crucial decisions like that, and that is a crucial. Them two were crucial decisions in different ways, because Waterford could have stayed in the Munster Championship that time, and we wouldn't go on about this meme about Waterford at the group stages if that decision was made correctly. And in this, O'Loughlin Gaels could have their name on the trophy this evening.
That's it.
It's just really, really poor decisions. I do think it's just we don't need to abuse referees or abuse umpires.
No,
they need help. Need help. They
And for
need VAR.
anybody who say, "Oh, the rep," put yourself in their position. Hurling is the fastest field game in the world. A shot for goal, and it immediately springs back out. Nobody knows what's going on. You wouldn't like to be the one that has to confidently say, "This is what happened," and like that's why they need as much help as we can give them. Now we have a comment in here from Hurling1234. He says you would feel for Mark Bergen. He was in tears after that miss at the end. I'm assuming he missed a free in the same position 16 years ago for St. Kieran's versus De La Salle in Croke Cup to level it that day as well. Look, it was a difficult free. It was a monstrous distance out. I actually, by chance for that, I was sitting in the lower Cusick. So I was close enough to where Bergen was taking that free from, and it was a monstrous distance out. And the minute he hit it, you knew he hadn't got it. It was going wide, and then the referee blows full time. And like for a guy who's been absolutely so super consistent with the frees all throughout the year, and has been one of the reasons why O'Loughlin Gales are where they are. I mean, you pulled it up before the final when we were doing the preview on your channel. He had, what was it, 62 points that he had up until that point. Like, he's been their leading light up front, and it's such a shame for him that he finishes his championship on that missed free, but he should hold his head high. He was outstanding throughout the year.
He was, and the thing is, actually, we mentioned on your podcast and my podcast as well in the previews that whoever had the best free taking day would win it. And it turned out Conor Cooney definitely did. He got 6 points there. I think Bergen got 2 or 3 as well, and that's just double scores. And Conor Cooney just had the better of the day for them. And O'Loughlin Gales, that we talked about their wing backs and their centre backs, and actually in their half back line, they managed to combine 6 points. That just showed they're way too reliant on their defence in many ways as well. And that was the big difference today.
That was my next point to you, actually. That was my next point to you, was it sounds really harsh, but when we were talking through it, we were saying O'Loughlin Gales' style over the last while has kind of tended to be keep the defence tight with Mikey Butler, Hugh Lawler, Paddy Deegan, and then let Mark Bergen do the rest up front. The reality is Thomas has had a man sent off. The game was there for O'Loughlin Gales to really kick on, and I think that no forward that they had really put their hand up and said, "Give me the ball, I'm going to tear through this Thomas's defence now." Whereas I feel like if Thomas's were a man down 10 minutes into the second half, ironically against Ballygunner or against Ballyhale Shamrocks, I think they would have finished them off.
Yeah, they would have. They would have. And that's the killer instinct we talked about with O'Loughlin Gales, and they just didn't have it. They had it in the first half, to be fair. They were hitting nearly everything over the bar. I think they had 75% in the first half. It massively dropped off in the second half. I don't know, was it just the swirling wind? And while we're on the swirling wind, like Eamon in the review with the football, he was mentioning that Glen had the wind in the second half and Bridges in the first half, whereas in the hurling, it looked like O'Loughlin Gales had the winds in the first half, and Thomas wasn't that bad in Croke Park. Like,
I was fascinated because I was in I was in the lower Cusick for the hurling game, and it did genuinely feel like the wind was changing direction every 5 seconds. I think it was one of those like where you looked up at the flags and they were absolutely pinging around, like left to right to left to right to left to right, and it was just crazy. Look, the atmosphere was absolutely incredible as well, though. Like, you just have to give it up to the fans that travelled down. Like, it was like the premium part, you looked up, that was absolutely packed. The lower tier, like the atmosphere coming from the crowd was absolutely sensational. It proves the interest is there. Like, if, the streaming services like, your Clubber and Dublin, like GA back in the club championship and everything like that, and TG Cahar with the work that they do, the audience is there. The club championship is an absolutely sensational championship that we have, and the showpiece was a success in that it was 2 games that went right down to the wire. It was 2 games where there was only 1 point in it. And my next thing that I'm going to come to you about is what stages in this game, apart from the obvious, like being the Aineberg point, what stages do you think Thomas has shaded it? What do you think shaded it towards them?
It was probably, ironically, it was around the time that they got the red card through James Regan. I think it was the start of the second half.
Yeah.
They powered on like a train in that period, and it looked like O'Loughlin Gaels just didn't have an answer. And that was probably the difference between the two sides in the end. And yes, the Ian Burke point was absolutely brilliant, but you have to consider as well, O'Loughlin Gaels just equalised before that point as well. So they were behind. So like it was really the second half burst from St. Thomas's. It was brilliant, and the fact they were down to 14 men as well. And yes, there was the goal line incident, but as well as that, St. Thomas's kind of had incidents against them. Like O'Loughlin Gaels could have easily had 2 red cards in that first half. On another given day, they would have been given those reds, and James Burke would have got off scot-free with a yellow. But like it was a bit of good. Compare them to the O'Loughlin Gaels challenges. The James Regan one was a bit iffy. I don't know, was it a red card, to be honest with you? It was just, again, another poor decision, really. But yeah, I think it was the second half.
Even it out? With the ghost goal, I know O'Loughlin Gaels feel hard done by, but do you think that Thomas's are able to be like, well, we shouldn't have had a man sent off?
Maybe so, but it's the difference between those incidents are, and I'm not taking away from St. Thomas's now, but the difference is the goal, it's so clear as day. It's over the line.
Yeah.
But with the red card, a lot of people would say it's a red. A lot of people would say it's not. Yeah. And it's just a differing opinion. But if you have that sort of an opinion, it's just your perspective on it. But the goal, it's so clearly obvious that it should have been given. So in a way, maybe not. But at the same time, O'Loughlin Gaels were facing its 14 men for the entire second half, and they still couldn't win the game. That's another angle, maybe. I don't want to be too harsh again on O'Loughlin Gaels here, but when you're facing 14 men, you have to take advantage of that, and they just didn't. I don't know what was wrong with them in the second half. I think their shot accuracy dipped so much in that second half, and they just couldn't flick a switch. In that period, like Paddy Deegan was performing well. The half back line I mentioned earlier, David Fogarty and Jordan Malloy were absolutely superb. But the rest of the team didn't do enough around them, and that was probably the main difference as well. And St. Thomas just had more in the tank as well to go for the full 60 minutes. And O'Loughlin Gaels kind of tired out. So, yeah, there was a lot of differences in the game. But Thomas is already All-Ireland champions, and fair play to them for it.
Yeah, absolutely deserving. So, and the last thing that I'm going to do to wrap it up, the question I'm going to ask you is, you selected David Burke as your man of the match on the Instagram post immediately after the game. His story is incredible. The injury he had, his return, his recovery, and his performance, he was majestic. That was peak David Burke, and leading his team to another All-Ireland title. Incredible. He's
so man. He's a man mountain. Yeah. He's just absolutely incredible in every way. He's just brilliant attacking, brilliant defending, and even the interview was just emotional afterwards listening to him. Yeah. And it was just brilliant. It was just these are the stories we live for. And at the end of it as well, Fintan O'Toole actually tweeted, wasn't only ironic as well that he got man of the match in this final after coming back from an injury, and as well as that, it was his younger brother that got the winning score as well.
Yeah.
And it's just fairy tale stories, and it really is for the Burke family. And it was just brilliant to see, and that's what the club championship's all about. The stories, the narratives and everything is just absolutely outstanding. And fair play to David Burke you would have said fair play to him for recovering from the injury, just that. But to go on and win it on Ireland's, it's just a remarkable story, really is.
No doubt. Hats off to David Burke, hats off to St. Thomas's, and hats off to Watty Graham's Glen as well. All-Ireland club champions, Glen in the football, St. Thomas's in the hurling. It's been an absolute pleasure to recap the weekend with Matthew and with Eamon Donoghue as well. Big thanks to them. Big thanks to anybody that listened over the course of the live stream. Thank you for putting the comments in. Thank you for getting involved in the discussion. If you're watching this and we're not live anymore, put it in the comments below as well. Your opinions, I'll get around to them all. Until the next video, guys, here on Cluiche, take care.